Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Ready and Talk About Stuff. I recently took a course in quantum biology, which was super interesting, actually. So, in case you don't know, quantum biology is taking quantum mechanics, which happens in a vacuum at 0 kelvins, I think, or something really cold where it's not life, you know? And it's taking quantum mechanics and applying it to biology, which the cell is a hot, wet structure. Like photosynthesis, for example, is a quantum biology phenomenon. There's just so many different things that happen in our environment that are quantum biology related. And what's really interesting about quantum biology is that it's not that everything's quantum biology. It's just that if it poses an evolutionary advantage for our cells to take on these quantum biology characteristics or things like photosynthesis, for example, then that's when you'll notice that it's going to happen in the system. Is as far as my knowledge and understanding of it is so far. But yeah, it's just been interesting to learn about a lot of things because, I just think that the things that we know about health and healing as it is right now are limited. I think we're coming to kind of a bit of a paradigm shift in a sense about what health and healing actually is. And I think there's a lot of new, not necessarily brand new things coming out, but just things that are starting to be more recognized and more discussed in a mainstream way, like quantum biology and things like German new medicine, which is also quite interesting. Psychoneuroimmunology, psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology, biopsychosocial behaviors or patternings, all that stuff, all the fancy terms. And it's really interesting because it's well, can a medication or a supplement fix or replace what these things can actually do for the health of our system? And the answer is absolutely not. You can't take melatonin to go to sleep at night and then not remedy all the other things that are, the root cause or the other things farther back in the line as to why you might be having issues sleeping at night. All of it needs to be addressed. It's all kind of relevant. And I find we've put so much weight on here, take this pill, this will fix the problem, or here, take this botanical, this will fix the problem, or here, take this supplement or whatever. So we're externalizing the problem without actually realizing that the solution or there's so many pieces to the puzzle that we can ultimately be kind of shifting or contemplating or getting curious about within ourselves that no supplement could possibly touch. It's like having a medication or a supplement or whatever is just kind of like that thing that supports us in our journey to, figuring things out on a bit of a different level. So all very fascinating and interesting stuff. Okay, cleansing balm has been on my face long enough. I'll be right back. Segueing a little bit into human design environments, because that's always a really interesting topic to talk about. I do see the relevancy in understanding environments in human design and why it's such a big deal when it comes to health and healing overall. Not that I think there's a lot of overlap with different types of environments and just simply how you're interpreting them. For example, living in a curated apartment, as such I am right now, as an internal markets individual, it's all about fresh pick selectivity, having the ability to switch things up when I want to, sectional couch. Little things like that where it's I am instilling a selectivity into my space, but that doesn't mean that someone with a valleys environment or shores could also pick up things in this space that would have said, oh, I created this space for a shores environment. Even when you look on Pinterest, for example, I had to put that on my face. essence, by the way, very important. Critical, very important, by the way. I find a lot of you guys, I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of you guys, a number of you don't use the essence, and it kind of surprises me because it's all supposed to be meant to be used together. So cleansing balm, essence, bare repair cream. I find that on like Pinterest, for example, when you're looking at examples of like, here's an example of a caves environment and what that might look like. Here's an example of a markets environment and what that might look like. You could take the same photo and put it into all the different types of, like, what are they called? The folders or whatever on Pinterest. Like, you could take the same photo and say, well, that's a markets environment because of this thing in it. And this is a caves environment because of this thing in it. And I think sometimes I get confused by this stuff sometimes. And this is where I think about it a lot, because I am not entirely, it's not necessarily having to do, like, where do I start this conversation? An internal markets environment seems to feel very, or a markets environment in general, not internal necessarily, but seems to be very materialistic when you think about it. Like, it's about the market and exchange of goods, and it just seems very at face value, materialistic. And I think that that's just, I mean, we can look at it that way. Like how a caves environment is best in like darker spaces with, less lighting or whatever, like a cave. We could look at it that way, but I don't really necessarily agree with all of that. I think that that's looking at it from a little bit too simplistic of a way, where instead I think it is relevant to consider the line that is related to the environment itself, and what does that line actually mean? Because really, we are all the lines combined together in some magical masterpiece, and so everybody's environment is relevant. And I find that really interesting too when I consider stuff like that, where it's like, when I'm sitting in a coffee shop, for example, I love sitting in a coffee shop. I love picking up the vibes of the space. Well, okay, saying that, me picking up the vibes of the space because I consume the vibes of the space is very like nervous touch. So like that determination part of my human design, I could say that about it. I could also say that being in a coffee shop that's like buzzy and vibey helps with my open sacral, that I'm, kind of absorbing some of that energy, that keeps me kind of like, getting stuff done type of vibe. And yeah, because I've even talked to a reflector about that before, that they really like going to coffee shops or being around other people so that, they're kind of like picking up that energy. It's all about the interpretation. Like, you could interpret human design in any which way that you want. And I think that has a lot to do with the reason why I've never formally taken any like training courses in human design, because I think that there's a way that things can be seen in some of these courses where it's like, well, this is how it is. It's like we're institutionalizing it, making it black and white, when I don't really believe that the habit of I don't know. I think I can see that there's a time and a place for stuff like that. And then I also think that for me personally, in my own like growth and development and understanding of myself in my life, I am not so sure that I want to be taking on some, this is how it is, black and white, like textbook version of my interpretations of human designs. I want to just be able to like take the understandings of the teachings and like the things that I've read and over the years kind of like contemplated, and apply those to my life and see like what I see about it and what I don't see about it. So that's just kind of how I see those things. But yeah, with the coffee shop thing, that could also be a Valley's environment too, right? Because there's exchange of information that's happening in a space. So like you could say they could be all of the environments. A coffee shop is all of the human design environments. It just has to do with how you interpret what's going on in the space around you. So a lot of it has to do with perception. Perception. You could be great in any environment, really. Do I feel like I'm going to be like more inspired and, become a millionaire, like living in my apartment or something like that? I mean, anything's possible, but I could have also been more inspired and been, raking in the dough, living somewhere else. Like it was a matter of perspective. Does it make it easier when you're living in a space that is curated to yourself of things that you really enjoy? Yes. However, I do think that there's a word of caution when it comes to those things. And I notice this about myself, that when I have curated an environment for myself that feels good to me, it's got my things in it, my little specificities around stuff that I like, and, colors and vibes and lighting and whatever. It makes it my space. So it makes it comfy and cozy, and it makes it that, I feel a sense of safety. But when you're in a parasympathetic nervous system state, so we've kind of taken myself out of like this fight or flight, I'm uncomfortable in my environment type of thing, this is just a proverbial example here. But I'm not living in a shitty apartment that makes me feel unsafe and makes me feel I wake up every morning just feeling really safe and good. And I think that is kind of that big kicker when it comes to, well, what is an environment in human design, and the little specificities about things. Would you walk in here and say like, oh, this person is internal markets in human design? No. Like, there's so many other elements about it. You'd be like, oh, well, maybe she's shores, maybe she's valleys. Like, you would never really know. It's just about honing in and curating based on your perceptions. How does something make you feel? Your environment is a big part of it, but your environment is an external thing. You changing your perception around your relationship to your environment is actually where all the healing comes from. Wild, right? Just absolutely wild. So as much as I love human design and these like, oh, this is a markets environment, this is this and this is that, it's like I see what you're saying. I do. At the same time, I think it's also really important to notice that there's a huge amount of overlap in these things. There's a lot of subjective interpretation as to what all these things are actually meaning. And it's up to you to create the subjective interpretation of what feels good to you, and go from there. So yes, do I love human design environments? Absolutely. Do I think that someone needs to move in order to get those things? No. I think that you can curate anything, any which way, within reason. Obviously, within reason. This is not a black and white conversation. Nothing really is. But yeah, just some food for thought, something to consider. Anyways, my face is lovely and clean now, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.